I want to talk to you today about my journey, my life journey, but in a shorter version, about how I had to be strong. I'm going back to the days when I was a child in Sri Lanka. I was only 9 years old and I was sitting in a classroom with only 6 other children. 16 of them were not there. And we wondered what had happened. Each of us were looking at each other. You know, in Sri Lanka, you don't ask the teacher what happened or where are they. We just had to sit silent, not knowing, trying to guess what had happened. Well, when the bell rings, we all have to get up and go to a common assembly. That's the rule every day. So as usual, we lined up and went into the school assembly. And there the usual business was discovered, what we had to do, etc. And the principal then announced that the school bus had got caught to a landmine and blown the bus out, and 16 innocent kids had died. This was the country I was born in. Terrorism. At the time I was born, of course. And we didn't know what was happening to us, little kids, right? These were our friends, our closest friends. We played with them and we went to each other's houses, and now they were not there. Terrorists don't make a distinction between children and adults, who was right and who was false. They just blast their way through. So this was my upbringing for a long time. When I grew up, let's look at the next phase in my life. I went to university in Sri Lanka, and then I met my husband and we decided to get married. And he had similar issues like me, not knowing our future. If we had children, what were they going to do? Where's our future? We had both by then got our PhDs in England. So in England, it was an entirely different life. And he said, why don't we migrate, get out of this country, right? That's what people try to do. You escape. And we did just that. He started applying for jobs. I recall he applied in Africa and Saudi Arabia. And when he got the job, and he said, my wife has a PhD, can she join me? No, we don't take women. So this is when I started facing the other side, where it was not just terrorists chasing me, it was the gender. The fact that I was a woman was not recognized. Finally, he said, why don't you apply? I applied to University of New England in Armidale. I got a job. And then he applied and said, my wife's got a job, can I come? Of course, Australia accepted us. So we went to Armidale in University of New England. Now, at this stage, we had 2 kids. We were married only for 2 years. So we had a 6-month-old baby and a 1.5-year-old toddler. I said, if I'm working, and in Sri Lanka you got servants to look after, drivers to chauffeur you, everything. In Australia, you don't get that, right? So when we moved, I said, I can't manage a 6-month-old baby and a 1.5-year-old baby. So we had 2 nannies for them in Sri Lanka, and mother-in-law looked after the babies with the 2 nannies, and we came to Armidale in New England. But these were temporary jobs. We needed to have permanent jobs to establish ourselves in Australia. So within 6 months' time, there was a job advertised at James Cook University, and he said, why don't you apply? I applied. There were 3 of us who had applied for the job, 2 men and myself. I thought, I don't have a chance. I'm a woman. But fortunately, I did excel at the interview and I got the job at James Cook University, where I still am. So when I got the job, it was again very difficult to decide. Kids in Sri Lanka, husband in Armidale, and I'm trying to go to Townsville. So it was very traumatic. In fact, having the kids there, when I came to Australia, I used to always look at the 2-year-olds and the little babies, and I feel, that I really miss them, but I couldn't do anything about it. I had to be strong to forget about that, saying, okay, we came here to do better for ourselves, our family. So that made me strong, and I went through it. So when I got my job, with my husband, we spoke. He said, you should go because one of us has to be permanent. Otherwise, we can't live here. So I went to the head of the department, my department, and I said, look, David, I have got this job, but I don't know what to do. He gave me the best advice. He said, Sue, you're a migrant, you're a woman, take the job. That's what he told me. So I took the job. And I'm still here with that job. However, things weren't that easy. So then 2 years later, we went and brought the kids. When we went there, the kids are looking the other way. They didn't know who we were. We are the parents, but they were brought up by the grandkids. So we brought my husband's mother, or my mother-in-law, with the kids to introduce the kids to us. And I lived with them on my own in Townsville. Father was somewhere like this. We lived like this for 9 years. My husband couldn't get a job in Townsville. Finally, he got a job at Ames, but he couldn't get a job at the university, so we had to live separate. So there were things like, will our marriage survive? I had different friends. He had different friends in Armidale. We could only meet over university holidays. The children were growing up without a father figure. So it was extremely difficult to live. I didn't know what to do. I was somebody who didn't know how to cook when I came to Australia. In Sri Lanka, you got cooks and chauffeurs and nannies to look after everything. I come here and I didn't know how to cook. Anyway, I managed to survive with some cooking. So I was a cook, the chauffeur, the gardener, mother, wife, everything. Now, this was a very difficult and a full-time job at James Cook University. I really feel sorry now when I look back at how my kids were brought up, because they used to have to stay at after-school care sometimes till about 5 p.m. They were the last to leave because I couldn't get out of university if I had a lecture. But they survived. They too were strong. I had to be strong as a mother and a chauffeur and everything. In fact, I even went to the extent of, I had a VW car. I had the extent of keeping the kids happy. So I removed the back seat so that it's a cubby for them. Then I removed the front seat so that I can leave the bassinet, at the bottom. And then we met with an accident. Another car ran into my VW, and luckily it ran on my side, so I was hurt on my leg and things like that, and the car was a write-off. Then all these people came running in Townsville, and they took the baby away from me, and I didn't know who took the baby away. When I looked in the distance, I saw the houses. There were some army houses that they took the baby away, and the other 2 children were with me. My husband was partying somewhere else at the time the accident happened. So he wanted to avoid the policeman because he was drunk, and in case he was given the breathalyzer. So, somehow or other, anyway, somebody else gave us a lift and we went. But we went through times when we were a family, but not a family that was living together. So this accident actually happened after my husband came to Townsville. Now, the final chapter in my life is what's called the empty nest. When the kids went to school here in Townsville, then they went to University of Queensland, and I really miss them because we used to be running to dance classes, speech and drama, music, all this, and I was part of all that. And that actually made me strong, even though I had to be on my own. So ladies and gentlemen, what I want to tell you is, in telling my story, I'm sure you will recall moments when you were by yourself, you lost a loved one, or you didn't have a job, or something happened. We all go through these stages. But if you have faith that something will be coming your way, I think everything will fall to place. So my advice is for all of you, don't think about your setbacks. Think about what you can do, how you can be positive, how you can be independent, and forget all that, and you will survive.